Is Pepper and Guy time because we don't have Colton. I don't know where Colton is.
Good morning.
Sleep. Likely Colton is just asleep. The lazy bum.
Or he's at work already.
The lazy bum. Oh wait, it doesn't work.
Not really. If he's at work, then he's not being lazy.
Yeah, the thing about being friends with people is
Exactly that.
abuse is sort of a given.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I actually last time I was around my father's family, I made this casual comment about the fact that like my dad's family, like if we don't make fun of you, we don't like you.
That was actually like an ongoing statement with my dad because I'd make death jokes and he'd make death jokes. And my stepmom, who wasn't really acclimated to our family because she's relatively new to the family and stuff, she'd completely freak out. And I was like, look, here's the thing. If we stop making old jokes and stop making death jokes, that means we're actually concerned. That's when we're worried.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, as long as we're making snarky comments about being old and snarky comments about dying, we're not that concerned.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's the nature of the beast in our families.
Yeah.
It's the same thing goes with everything. It's like, if I start making, I'm going to brush off all this stuff that's here. If I start making jokes about, if I'm not making jokes about, oh, the first thing today is going to be a bot on YouTube.
Wow. Hey, at least this one has an English name, Donna Sanders.
Oh, yeah, Donna Sanders. Well, guess who's
welcome to the show, Donna Sanders. I'm sure you have
something about to become a bad guy. Poor Donna Sanders. She's now a bad guy.
Yep.
So you were talking about.
I have a paying gig that I've been using some time to. Basically, I've been using some time away from. I don't know how to describe it other than the fact of.
You want to take a break?
Basically, I've been between. Hey, Brent. Between basically getting feedback and stuff, I've been using my time to like do other things. I did finish the image that I did on Wednesday. I didn't post it anywhere. I just finished it. But I've been using the time like while I've been waiting for feedback and stuff. Also in between doing research and all of that other fun stuff because some of the feedback came back like, hey, we need stuff more like this or something like that. So I'm like,
good morning, Donald. And yes, you're
right. Yeah. Good morning, Donald. So essentially, I did manage to get one of the scripts done, as I said last week. So this week, I got. So the script is actually one of the scripts of 4 stories I have been wanting to put together in like a collection or like just a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So the following one, instead of doing a full script, I got page descriptions of what's supposed to happen on each page done. That particular story is called Jacques or Jacques.
Okay.
And then I got the same type of deal that I did with that one. I got the page descriptions for another one called In a Meadow. And then I got to the last one, and it was supposed to be originally 10 pages long, and now has morphed into 23 pages, and has taken on a life of its own. Because that is the promise of procrastination. When you don't want to do something or you're taking your time to try to make sure that you get everything right and perfect before you send it off to someone else to get approval of, this is my process. Like, I get to like a thing where I get a lot of it like looks like it's like overwhelming that I'm putting on myself. And then basically that's when I'm able to
I'm going
create.
to interrupt you real quick to say, okay, Donald, you can do that, man. We're glad to have you for just a second.
Oh, okay.
Enjoy
Okay.
your breakfast with Aunt Margaret.
Oh,
Tell her
okay.
we said hi.
Hi, Aunt Margaret.
Yeah, exactly.
Or is it Aunt Margaret? I don't know. I had Auntie Mays and Aunt Beth and Aunt. I have had aunties, aunts, and aunts.
I have the uh, I have a hard problem with aunts and aunts and stuff.
Well, I mean, I had aunties and I had aunties and as well. So, like my one of my mom's sisters, we call Auntie Beth,
Right.
but one of my grandmother's sisters was Annie Mae.
No,
So
I used to use aunt because ant was a small creature that crawls around on the sidewalk.
that is
And then,
something that, I think, I swear, all Southern United States people seem to say to
yeah.
kids, and it gets ingrained into us. But
Well,
eventually,
the other
someone will.
direction. Well, I didn't go the other direction. My grandmother, I kept saying that, and she one day she looked at me and she said, "Don't say aunt, say aunt." And I said, "Aunt is a little bug," and she goes, "You'll sound like a black person." And I went, "Oh," because I was 6, so I didn't want to sound like a black person or whatever. It's amazing how pervasive these things are.
I basically was told, go by the direction of the person I am trying to talk to.
Yep. That's
So
that
that
at
is why
least is
I have,
reasonable. This that
yeah.
that particular thing still bothers me to this day. Absolutely bothers me. It drives me crazy that that was accepted. I was not with my mom and dad at the time. I was just with my grandparents. So, because I know that my dad would have had an issue with that, and my dad, in his in his amicable way of doing things, he would have snarked about it and made comments, and my grandmother would never have lived that one down because it was my mom's mom,
Yeah.
and there was stress between my grandmother on my mom's side and my dad.
Yeah, this is kind of yeah, I know the feeling. Let's just say I know the feeling.
But
Uh,
that's why I have a problem with it, because I can't remember which one I'm supposed to say, and then I keep saying, "Oh, great, you're just following your 6-year-old programming," and then I get all tangled up in that, and then I get all shameful. Then I get all like there's so many emotions tied up with that particular
I
one
I
word.
I look at it this way: is I was never told you sound like a black person.
No, 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 no.
The way that it was explained to me is if you say aunt over aunt, my family said it sounds like you're educated.
Right.
They didn't put they didn't put race behind it.
No, well, which is interesting because
Yeah.
aunt apparently was the black person word. So it's interesting how different that was, because
It also depends.
us being
You also get up in a different.
uneducated or whatever was the
Yeah.
common, whatever was the thought process that was going through my grandmother's brain at the
Yeah.
time.
Well, also you also grew up in a different area of the South than
I
I did.
did. I grew up in Texas, and
Yeah.
things were
And
different in Texas than they were in Florida. I mean, definitely.
a lot of people don't consider Florida really a southern state, but it truly is. It has a lot of things that basically make it a southern state. But when I was growing up, my mom and my grandmother basically like I think my mom even said it to me too, where that word, referring to anyone, basically they boiled it down to you get told what you're going to be calling these people. So if they say you're supposed to call them Aunt Kim, you call them Aunt Kim. If they say Aunt Kim, you call them Aunt Kim.
Right, I get that.
But my grandmother was the one that kind of was like, you sound stupid if you say aunt.
Right.
Now,
Which is funny because it's exactly the opposite of where we were. We were
Yeah.
supposed to say aunt and not say aunt.
right. And now, mind you, auntie and auntie are terms that usually mean like you're supposed to direct them at your like favorite aunt or aunt. You're supposed to direct those usually to someone that you very much enjoy being around. However, in my family, the reason why they were used was that's exactly what we were supposed to call them. That's what they wanted to be called. So we called them that.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Well, and the reality, of course, is that all of that was stupid, and it's it was just. But it's one of the things that I think of often when people talk about how racism is over or things like that. I'm like, it's still there. It's just pervasive. It's just stuck in like weird corners of our brains and stuck in like strange places.
We're still at the point where we're trying to break. A lot of society today is trying. We have a great deal of what we don't want to pass on to the next generation.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, like
one of those things that seems to not want to do that.
The Plains of Kansas, where you were all simple idiots. Yes.
Well,
that's why I feel like actually, in reality, between what Pepper and I are saying, I feel like that's actually what's happening. Is the Texans like the salt of the earth, simple folk concept, and so I think that the idea that they were headed for was to make us say aunt so that we would sound simpler and more salt of the earth and simple. Whereas in Florida, same concept, you were trying to sound more highbrow and, for whatever reason was cultural, because like, who knows what the culture was thinking back in the 70s, 80s.
Well, remember my family, my mom was born in Florida.
Right.
I was born in Florida. My grandparents were not. They were born in Massachusetts.
Right. They were Northerners.
And my dad's family's from Rhode Island. So
he doesn't really get much more north than that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit more north, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, like as much as I say that, but I do have a lot of roots in New England, and New England they say aunt.
Of course, they also say ka instead of car.
Rhode Island. Okay, so Rhode Island actually sounds like if you mixed Bronx, New York accent with Bostonian accent, and that's the Rhode Island accent. It's like, yeah, I'll go get the car. Yeah, right now I'll go get it. It's just right out the car. Yeah, but like I grew up with basically being taught like you need to enunciate your words. You need to do this with your language. You need to do this with your language. Because in reality, if I actually talked like a true Floridian, I actually would have a slight twang all the time. And that's what my grandparents were like, no, we don't want you to sound like that. We want you to sound
into the weeds. It's interesting to think that this guy here was in my life just barely when this whole incident that we're talking about with my grandparents happened.
Yeah.
It's not that long ago.
No.
Anyway.
Yeah, but anyways, getting back to what I was saying originally.
We literally spent 20 minutes on the word aunt versus aunt.
Well, it's what's funny is I got to the final story and I made a story with 3 foster kids that are aging out of the foster system and going on Scooby Doo adventures.
That sounds like fun, actually. I like that.
So like I've been wanting to do something Scooby Doo esque for a very long time, and so I decided that doing these, I think I'm just gonna try to write out like 13 of them and attach one of these stories to each one of these collections, so that you get like filler of small episodes, and then you get the big story type deal. Like back in the day when you would pick up older comics,
Mm-hmm.
like the comics would be like, stay tuned for next time. Here's another short story. Like
Right.
so I call it 13 equals 4. And the first one that I'm writing is called Wisp Miss Manor. Um, one of the all the kids are 17, but the first one that's turning 18 gets called to a place, like a manor, and he owns a vehicle. Like he got enough money to buy a vehicle that they could all travel in and all this other stuff. Um, and since they were all aging out at the same time, they kind of became their own like little group.
Right.
They do own a cat that talks, but is more or less the cat has explained that he is a witch's familiar, and that is why he's with them. But he won't say which of them are the witch. So, so obviously it's a typical black cat. He doesn't want to give up information easily. Um, so Dylan, which is the kid that they're going to see, this distant relative that they're inheriting the home of, he also inherits a fortune as well with it. It comes with the house, so he
Mm-hmm.
can pay to stay, like so they can pay the taxes and stuff to live there. But like most foster kids that haven't had like a permanent home, like they don't go through the fortune like everyone thinks that they would initially. They actually like plan how to basically make the most of everything so that they can stay living there because it's their first stable home that they've ever known for a while. Um, and then, but the manor's haunted, so they have to
Right.
solve that. And the wraith that they go up against is called a Wispmiss, hence for Wispmiss Manor. Um, Although the only thing different is I don't think I want to do it where like they reveal that the wraith is actually a human person. I actually want it to be a ghost. So I guess
Okay.
I guess I'm like following more suit of Scooby Doo and the 13 Ghosts type track.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um,
But
so
with fewer glass walls that cut people in half?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Um, Although that was a fun scene. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I'm talking to Bill. I'm telling him about what I did, and because he was like, "How about they enter a manor with 13 ghosts in it, and it's the 4 of them?" And I was like, okay. And so I don't think I could do 13 ghosts in one home successfully in 23 pages. So that's why I became 13 different stories.
Yeah.
You can thank my husband. But like basically they go and visit kids that were in the foster care system. They go and visit like family members that they didn't know that they have. Um, they basically go in like they go on a vacation and didn't realize that they actually signed up to work instead of being on vacation.
Right.
That sort of deal. Um, So, and just like Scooby Doo, like I actually like the first one's a haunted man is a haunted manor. The next one's a haunted castle. Then a haunted fun house, a haunted forest cabin, a haunted observatory, a haunted lighthouse, a haunted southern mansion, a haunted school, a haunted island house, a haunted boat ride, a haunted museum, a haunted racetrack, and a haunted comic book studio.
Okay.
So I'm talking to Bill this morning, and he goes, what if the cat wasn't the fourth in 13 equals 4? What if it was another kid that never was in the foster care system that's been pulling the strings on these kids because apparently this kid's parents
Yeah.
made it so that the 3 kids entered foster care and being separated from their birth families. And I'm like, okay. So apparently this is actually a long format revenge story now.
Gotcha.
um and I don't know this kid's name yet. I'm just labeling him Mystery Kid. Like
Name him George,
is. Yeah. Um
who is unimpressed with me.
George is unimpressed with
Yeah,
you.
he's laying here looking at me, and I looked at him and I was like, and he went,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, you're unimpressed with me. I get it now. I see.
Yeah. So that's basically where I've been at as far as work goes this week. Um, I did get sick midweek. Uh, wasn't the best time in my life, but
When is a good time to get sick?
I know, right? Yeah, I woke up and then got sick, went back to bed, essentially. um, but yeah, that's basically where I'm at as far as work goes, stuff like that. Um, but yeah. Anyway,
I'm sort of working on, and I'm actually continuing to work on it right now, the tech manual, which I'm not 100% sure is a tech manual anymore. Kind of
so
wondering if this is more.
what is the difference between a book about your story and a tech manual?
Well, that's sort of so the tech manual is just a conceit. So we have a whole bunch of dispergent pictures, and
Mhm.
the conceit was to, because otherwise we're just throwing a bunch of pictures on into a comic book thing and printing it. And so we were trying to find something as a conceit, kind of, what is this book? So we were thinking a tech manual. But I was kind of wondering if maybe it would be more like a brochure. But then my wife brought up an important part about that too, because I was like, this could be a brochure about the Unity. Um, and the only real difference that's going to change anything on this is literally just what's on page 1. When you open up the cover, does it say, "Hi, welcome to the Unity new Navy person," or does it say, "Hi, welcome to the Unity visitor to the Unity"? It really, that's the only difference it makes. The rest of it's identical in all ways. I'm just trying to figure out. So the problem that I have is if it's a tech manual or like something for if the conceit is, welcome to the Navy, then it's got too much detail for a Navy officer who just joined. And if it's a welcome to this aspect of the Navy, then it's got too broad of an information for someone who's been in the Navy forever. Like if you've been in the Navy for 50 years, you really don't need somebody to tell you this is what your uniform looks like because you're probably wearing it. So that conceit kind of got a little weird to me. So then I thought, well, what if it was like a travel brochure? Welcome to this part of the world, which ended up with an interesting thing that I wrote last night that I thought was fascinating. Even if I don't use it, I liked what I came up with. I wrote it from the point of view of the mayor welcoming you to the human control zone, which is what they call this part of the Unity. Um, the more I think about the way that I'm structuring the world and the galaxy around it, just this is another one of those. I know people kind of are making fun of, and it's not just Brent, but it's my wife and my best friend, and everybody's making fun of me for the star maps. However, the star maps had one very important thing that occurred, and that was I started to really grasp the size of the galaxy. Like, not just, oh, yeah, it's big, but like really grasp the size of the galaxy. And it became kind of weird to think that Bellatrix and the 12 stars around Bellatrix were the center seat of a galactic civilization that spanned across the entire galaxy. It'd be kind of like having the world government out of Longmont. You know, it'd be so weird. It was just like such a small segment of the universe and everything. And you think that to make it reasonable, the Jacine have to be a significant distance away. Otherwise, you have all of the sentient races popping up within inches of each other. It'd be like, again, like the only humans that ever showed up, and any other, all the races of humans and all the diversity of humans and dolphins and whales and all the sentient intelligent creatures on the planet Earth all showed up in Logmont. I mean, it's like, I mean, it just does. It started to break sort of my reality on the world. So I shifted a little to say that Bellatrix is the human control zone. This is the part of the Unity who takes care of Earth and takes care of all the war memorials and things like that that are around Earth that were part of this big war. And it doesn't change the story because we still run into humans all the time now that are all over the place, scattered to all these planets and stars and stuff like that. And so we still have the ability to have all the stories we had before. Nothing changes from the Tamerlane stories. All the Tamerlane stories were intentionally written to not be seeking out new life and new civilizations per se, but rather what was going on in the Federation. When I had written all of those Tamerlane stories, they all were, you know, we're going to Starbase way the hell out in the middle of nowhere. And when we get there, there's a fight going on between a labor union and stuff. You know, that was the plots of these stories. You know, so I don't need to worry about putting Bellatrix necessarily in a place where they're going to go to a alien planet every week, because that wasn't what Tamerlane was. And all the scripts that I have already written for Tamerlane, I'm repurposing for Bellatrix, all take place on, you know, human outposts or, you know, human bases or something, or explore the interaction between AIs and humans, or, you know, whatever stuff that really does fit just fine in if this became a, this is all the zone that the humans have populated over the last 500 years, and some of them haven't been seen in 200. You know, nobody's visited this planet in 200 years. So it's gone off on its own little rails. And now the Unity is visiting them, and they're like, oh, yeah, we've been breaking a lot of laws. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So still fits. Everything still fits. What I'm having a problem with the tech manual is that it is, the conceits don't work. So then I thought, well, what if I made it just a brochure of, you know, welcome to the human control zone? But then my wife brought up, well, why would you have then deck plans of a military spaceship on board? And so I feel like it doesn't matter what I do, there is no conceit that's going to work. None of these conceits are going to work perfectly. None of them will. Because there's always going to be some piece of this where you're just going to have to say, yeah, I know that doesn't fit, but we drew a cool picture and I wanted to put it in there. You know, no matter which way we look at this, that's the way it's going to be. So I really kind of am at the point where it's like I really don't know or really think I should worry too much about whether this is a tech manual for novice Navy people or a tech manual for experienced Navy people or a brochure of the you know what? It doesn't really matter. All of the conceits are going to have a problem in one way or another. So we'll just roll with it and let it go. Don't get too hung up on it. For a day with snow, you and I are getting a whole bunch of sunshine. I'm just saying.
We're supposed to have snow today?
Yes, it's going to start snowing at noon.
No.
3
No,
inches.
it's not allowed to snow today. I need to plant begonias.
Yep.
No,
I
actually,
want to go to Troy's house tonight, but I'm not going out there if it's snowing.
Yeah.
Which that has my kid kind of dismayed too, because my kid's sad about the fact that we're probably not going to go. But it is extra hard to say we're not going to go down to see Troy when it's sunny and I can see blue sky. And I know that means that, So, anyway, what happened was, regardless of whether this is going to be a tech manual or a brochure or whatever, I wrote a blurb for the brochure while reading like the first blurb that I could find on the internet, a welcome letter from the mayor of Blah City. And I think I picked like, I don't know, Lafayette somewhere, probably Lafayette, Kentucky or something. It didn't matter. Anyway, sort of matched the style and design and ended up with a fascinating, if nothing else, additional concepts that were kind of cool, because I've been thinking a little bit about this with characters too. One of the problems that I'm having with my characters is, and I have this problem with Star Trek as well, and it's what we call convenient hobbies, right? It's Captain Guy and Commander Pepper, and we do all of these things, and 50 episodes in, we find out that Commander Pepper plays poker all night long, every night, and has for 50 episodes, but we never saw it because this episode has an alien who wants to beat us at poker. So conveniently, Commander Pepper knows how to do poker and has been forever. As in, like, their hobbies aren't, they're used conveniently.
Right.
Realize that, like,
that kind of goes with your main influence of your story, which is Star Trek.
yeah.
Like, I'm not saying Star Trek like did it as a trope, but it is.
No, but it is a trope, and it is a trope that happens in Star Trek a lot.
Because Picard majestically always seemed to, like, the very first hobby that you actually find out that he has is the violin.
No, that's Data. Data has the violin.
Data, sorry, but like
Picard's an archaeologist.
Yeah, that's what.
Commander Guy likes to build ships in the bottle.
Too many.
So true.
Yeah.
Ghost Hand knows me well.
Yeah, you would. I could actually see Ghost Hands. Like, I could see you doing that if you were on a starship, Guy. Unfortunately,
I would totally build ships in a bottle. It would be my thing.
And I could picture like you like being on a starship and someone comes into your room and it's just filled with different size bottles and different size ships.
It would be horrible.
But
that's the point. I actually think that I should add hobbies to all of these characters before the story starts. And by the way, this is a 10-minute job, Brent. I don't want you worried that, but it's something I've been thinking a lot about because, like, Spock's hobby apparently was being a Vulcan. I mean, like, that was what he always wanted, right?
And you know what? Like, the one thing. Okay, first I do like Spock. Don't get me wrong. Everyone loves Spock.
Sure.
The problem with Spock for me has always been that he is a one-note character.
Right, exactly. Well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, like,
what did Spock do in his off time? He played 3D chess to beat people, but
Yeah.
only because Vulcans always beat people at 3D chess,
Right.
right? That was the only reason he played chess. He didn't go to competitions. It's not like he was in the Andorian competition of 2253, or anything like that. You don't find out that he had anything except that his hobby was apparently being Vulcan. And I
Yeah.
was realizing that Mayrel was going the same way. She's Deistati. And Deistati are all about stories and storytelling and everything like that. And I was building up this thought process that Mayrel's going to befriend my teenage girl because the teenage girl comes from today. And so essentially, Mayrel's just going to want to drain that girl of every story she's got of 21st century Earth because a lot of those stories are gone. And so as a Deistati, she's going to want to do that. But then I thought about it. I was like, boy, what a crappy way to become a friend. I mean, that'd be kind of like going to Ghost Hand and saying, Ghost Hand, I wish to be your friend so I can learn about Brazil. Like, Ghost Hand's whole existence is all about being just Brazilian? I mean, like, that's not fair. It's not a fair way to look at people. It's not a fair way to... So now I've decided I'm going to give her a hobby, and she's going to start out with, whatever it is, but playing cards. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Honestly, with
like everything, I will use a random generator so that I won't get pigeonholed.
Well, the way that you've described the Deistati, card playing would probably fit.
I wonder if there's a maybe,
because playing cards, that's on how you find out different stories and different characteristics of people.
Yes, it's true. Although I'm loving my random hobby generator already. Kickboxing, jogging, bullion collecting.
I don't know. Well, first of all, I don't know how bullion collecting would work in the future.
I don't know.
I mean,
so funny.
Like, if you're playing it close to the rules of like grounded in reality science fiction, spacefaring races at a certain point with our culture and the way that we think goes, like bullion is an absentee currency.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
actually, bullion collecting might be a thing you do if you are into that kind of stuff. I think that one's too obvious for a body because you'd only collect bullion for exactly what you're talking about. You'd only collect it because it's a historical artifact, and that's too on the nose. I think that if your entire world, it's kind of like, it'd be like, because I feel like the Deistati view historical keeping and storytelling as a religion. So to some degree, they see that as a religious expression. So it'd be like Christians collecting Bibles. Okay, but that's your whole thing.
Christians that collect Bibles.
Huh?
I know a lot of Christians that collect Bibles.
As their primary hobby?
My mother collects pictures of Mary. Yes.
As her primary hobby, though? Like, she doesn't knit, she doesn't watch TV.
If I buy her a depiction of Mary, I know she'll like it. Well, but I also know that my mom collects dragon figures.
Right.
As well. So, like, it's kind of like this really weird juxtaposition.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, there is an expression of your religion, and then there's the thing that's unique about you. Because I think every Christian, specifically, has crosses or Bibles or, you know what I mean? Like, they'll have indicators of their religion.
I have met some in the past. They're not family members. They're people that I've just met through my mom.
I'm not saying that it won't happen. I just feel like it doesn't happen as often.
No, like one person I met that collected Bibles. They did it for...
I think you're missing my point and intentionally trying to prove that it should be okay for Spock to be a Vulcan and his hobby is Vulcan. And I think you're trying to prove
no,
that.
but
And I'm trying to say, I don't think people do that in real life. And you're like, but I've met people who are Vulcans who only Vulcan. And I'm like, I get that.
I unfortunately I have, and that's where I'm going. That's what I'm talking about.
I get that. And
Yeah.
you're trying to justify why it's okay that Spock exists. And I'm trying to say, I feel like that's a trope, and probably I want to break that with my characters.
Well,
Because
and
I
it's
feel
not
like though
a
there
bad
are
thing.
people out there who are like that, and I agree with you. I feel like that it's not the norm. The norm isn't that all Christians only collect Christian artifacts and never do anything but Christian, and all Jewish people only collect Jewish artifacts and only Jewish. You know what I mean? Oh, you're Jewish? Well, let's go collect a whole bunch of Torahs. I mean,
Well,
that
it's
I
kind
don't
of
think
like
that's the normal. It'd be
okay,
kind of
so
like, and like I said, it's kind of like saying you go to Ghost Hand and all you expect him to do is Brazilian, like he's got no life outside of Brazil. You know what I mean?
okay,
It's sort of
well, I,
blank.
I
It's sort
get
of
what you're
flat.
trying to say, guy.
Yes.
I get what you're trying to say. All right,
So
but I'm
the
I'm
long and the
just
short
saying
of it
that you
is,
should have at least one character that is like that.
oh yeah, well, but I feel like that would also be your identity. Identity
Yeah,
is different than your hobbies.
right. And that that
That's
that that's not a bad.
but I think you're right. You could definitely. Oh, I broke something. You definitely could have something where your identity is the same as your hobby.
Right. It,
And
it's kind of like me and Bill. Once
yeah,
they find out that I am married or Bill is married to a man, it always becomes we are basically referred to as our
the gay
sexuality.
couple. Yeah,
Yeah.
your identity becomes your hobby. Actually, that is a perfectly good example. Or Christina, whom is native, and so like that is one of her identities. But she's also a comic artist, and she does gorgeous covers and stuff like that. That's not what she is. She isn't native. You know what I mean?
Well, I
What
mean,
she
that's
is
just
as
a
a
small
human,
aspect of Christina, though,
mhm,
too, because
what she is
uh,
as a human is
yeah,
that. Now,
she's
does she periodically have to go to speaking engagements and talk about what's going on with the indigenous culture of America? Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Does she do that? Yeah, of course she does. That's part of what she does. But if you were to ask her what her primary love is in life, it's not
it,
Wrath. Ah, Wrath. Ha ha. Ha. Okay, never mind. But I mean,
no, it wouldn't be Raph, it would be Coda.
let's be realistic here.
Let's be realistic. It's Coda.
It's Coda. But I mean, if you were to ask her what her primary drive in life is, it wouldn't be native. It
No,
wouldn't be indigenous cultures, although
it,
that is something that's a flag she's decided to fly. It's
oh
definitely
yeah,
something to
it
identify
is. It
as.
is. But also at the same time, like when you're talking about your own story and trying to figure out like which hobbies to give whom and stuff like that, you also have to take into account like certain aspects of the cultures that they bring in also affect their hobbies too. So for the Deistati, if they are collecting bullion, they would be pushing the boundaries of how close to the forbidden zone that they're not supposed to go towards where Earth was located at one point.
Right.
It would be pushing that boundary a lot if
Well,
they were
that's
truly
exactly
like
what I'm trying to say.
collectors of that, like
There probably would. I think that there would. I mean, it's kind of like you and Bill are more likely to go to LGBT rallies and stuff like that than say I would, because that's part of your universe. That's part of your culture. It's
yeah,
part of, but really the truth is I would find Pepper at a comic convention.
you would probably find me at one of those more.
Right. So part of one of them is your identity. It's part of your identity. and I was thinking about this. So this I started thinking about this, and the reason why I'm trying to talk over you is because I'm going a different direction. That I'm trying to identify a slot in our brains so that I can do a thing. Um, when you get to unity and where we are in this world, I did this whole thing about how marriage works. And in the unity now, the marriage works by you have a primary. That is your next of kin. That's the person that the government contacts, and you pick it. And that
Yeah.
could be your wife, or it could be your best friend, depending on how you see things. And that's up to you, nothing to do with the government. But more importantly, you divorce the sex element out of it. So it's not necessarily your mate, it could be someone you do not mate with. And I was saying this because I thought if you look at it that way and you take that element out, my best friend James would have been my primary for a good portion of my time. You could argue that we were dating. It's just that since neither one of us are homosexual, there was no sexual element to it. However, we had a house together. We were having parties. We were throwing parties like you throw parties with Bill, you know? So, I mean, like in all aspects except one, it was like we were in a dating relationship. And so you look at it kind of from that point of view, and you could see that I was even, by that standard, polygamous at one point in time because I was dating a girl and dating my friend James, if you will.
That's not polygamy. That's polyamory.
You're splitting hairs.
But no, polygamy is when you're married to more than one person.
If
Polyamory is when you're with more than one person and
you
it's
take the
mutual.
concept, if you take the concept that whoever is your primary is who you are married to, then it's
Well,
polygamy.
okay, like when you explain it that way, it's a little bit better. But before you were not explaining it that way.
Unity considers who you are married to is your primary.
Yeah.
And your primary is, it doesn't matter, there's no wedding, there's no, you are married, there's no civil union. That's your primary. If you have a child between the two of you, then the child has your two primaries that they contact. And that's all the government cares about. When I set this up and started divorcing stuff out of it and pulling things out of it, I realized that once you set up a universe where it doesn't matter if you're married, if you're a man married to a man, or if you're a man married to a woman who's sleeping with a man, none of that matters to the government and or society for that matter. Nobody cares anymore. None of that. That allows for all of the different aspects of sexuality. It allows for all the different aspects of relationships. And it's very open to all of that. And I thought once you get to that stage, you don't need to have a lot of these groups fighting for stuff anymore because they don't need to.
Yeah.
Society's done imposing itself on you. And so I was like, but so you really don't want to bring Alex forth to there and have her hobby be that she's a lesbian or something like that, because then she's neutralized in the universe. Her hobbies are gone, so to speak. She becomes not that I think that Alex is lesbian. She's 14, so she doesn't have an alignment in my head. I don't know what her alignment is, but and I guess that will come to me someday when down the road when it becomes important or significant.
Honestly, I would picture someone the way that you described her and coming into the future aspect of the story from where she came from. I realistically, I would probably say that she'd be a typical 14-year-old girl that would be,
all over the map.
yeah, not really sure.
That's where my nibbling is or was. When my nibbling was 13, 14, they were all over the map. They were everywhere. And now that they are 18, they've settled down to being all over the map. and
Well,
they're perfectly content there.
there's also the other aspect of it where, and I don't think this is done often enough, especially for girls in storylines.
Uh-huh.
where it seems like there's always supposed to be a gender specific love interest for girls,
Yeah.
and there's not enough representation of basically asexual girls in media, where they're not attracted to boys, they're not attracted to girls. They can have romantic feelings, they can have no romantic feelings whatsoever. And the thing is with and I find this, like, both boys and girls kind of fall onto the gray sexual or asexual manners. They feel the pressure of conforming
Yeah.
to society, in the sense of being with another person in a relationship. And the one thing that I find very difficult with that is girls have more pressure about it than boys do.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, as a male gets older, then they start being asked the question, are you gay? Is that why you haven't found a girl? Like, and it still goes on today.
Yeah.
Um,
But I
and
feel
but
like
with girls, it's not asked that way. It's like, you need to get a man, or you're cranky. Go have sex.
well,
I've heard these comments directed towards friends
sure.
and
I'm
stuff
not
by their family sometimes too.
But I also feel like that you said it right off the bat, and I think that's probably where we are, is that Alex at the moment is asexual,
Yeah.
and that's fine. And I think actually somewhere along the line, when she realizes that she's first got to go through the, oh crap, I'm displaced. But once she settles in, I think that could be an interesting storyline down the road, which is, what, you guys don't expect me to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or anything? And
Yeah.
no, we don't. You can, in fact, I was kind of, so I had a scene in my head where Mayrel comes up to Alex and says, hey, I would like for you to be my primary and for me to be your primary. But the translator that she's wearing makes that marriage, because the translator doesn't know how to translate primary into English. And so ends up being, I want to marry you. And then she's like, I'm 14, and it's like, no, that's not what that means. What that means is that we are the first contact for the government in case anything happens. And it means we're the primary person in contact for each other and the most important person in each other's lives, yada, yada, yada. Doesn't necessarily mean anything about whether we're dating or anything like that. And so I thought that would be an interesting sort of way to showcase that in one quick scene.
Uh,
But I think it also would be interesting because, of course, Mayrel has a different motive in this instance, which is one of the reasons why I was like, I want to give Mayrel something else to live for than just Deus Thati, because that's not a thing that seems like a thing. So, okay, we've gone way into the weeds on all kinds of stuff. And I didn't mean to necessarily defend this one to the bitter end.
no, and I'm sorry if you felt like you had to.
I think the TLDR on this is I have a random hobby generator, and I will randomly generate hobbies for all of my characters and add them in, and then just remember that I want to discuss it. Like it says here, beach volleyball, so clearly, but it could be any sport, candle making, I think I'll just come up with some that sounds kind of fun and out of the norm, and not the norm, and we'll do that. Now I have a question that I woke up at like 2 this morning with a thought, and I'm not sure what to do about this.
Okay.
So there is a rule in storytelling that says start in the middle of the action. Right?
Okay. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
It's a theory. Instead of, starting with the spaceship comes into into the solar system, and everybody talks a lot, and then, oh no, a battle occurs. You start with the battle, and everything blowing up and exploding all over the place, and people in chaos. Um, it's a philosophy of writing, and I actually kind of like it because it draws you right into the story really quick.
Uh-huh.
This morning, I had sort of a thought of, what if we started with Alex on a skateboard going through the middle of Old Town Arvada?
Okay.
And then she's tootling along on her skateboard, and she goes and gets ice cream from Scrumptious, which is a wonderful little place that, not, it'll be called, sacrilegious. I don't care. It doesn't matter. So that I don't have to make it Scrumptious, but you get the idea. Anybody who lives in Arvada would know that that's Scrumptious. She goes and gets ice cream, comes out, and then like somewhere along the line, she sees something like, she sees like a doll on the side of the railroad tracks by the train. And she goes over to look at the doll, and it changes, like becomes, I don't know, a skeleton or something. And that's when she sees the time blocks going through the town, tearing up the town, which was what happened during the Titan War. And then she wakes up, and now she's in the medical lab of the Kittiwake. And so instead of going through all of this first issue, one of the problems I have with the first issue is it's not one of the ones that I wrote for Tamerlane. It's written wholesale. So it wasn't one of the stories that was written for Tamerlane. And it has nothing in it except get the girl. That's the entire plot of the story. So I'm having kind of a problem with that. And I'm like, this could just skip all of that and move straight into the stories.
Well, also, okay, so I understand where you're going with it, but I do see a little bit of an issue on my end, and I do have this problem myself. So I
Go ahead.
identify with it. And
We already have an opinion in from my wife, so give me, if your opinion matches her opinion, then I'm going to be like, well, I guess I'm on the wrong spot.
And here's the deal: is it is not Tamerlane.
Yeah.
Okay, and you've been working on this for such a long period of time. A lot of people just want you to write the first script before Alex comes into the picture. And with that, when you are about to introduce Alex, you can still do that. Because basically what you're about to do is you're about to introduce her to a futuristic environment, but the last thing she remembers is skating on a skateboard.
Right. Well, she's having a nightmare.
Yeah, well, yeah, she may be having a nightmare, but she
wasn't actually there.
Right. Yeah, but the thing is she wakes up on a Kittiwake.
Right. So, so the overriding story is that she died in the Titan War.
Yeah.
She sacrificed herself to save pretty much the universe effectively. That was a story I wrote when I was like 19 or something like that I folded into the world building here. So it is a little cliche in that, superhero kid sacrifices her life to save the universe. Okay, cool. But I can at least fold that into the story. The story is then she has been resurrected and put on Moment, this world, which is the only world. There are very few worlds in my universe that are actually oxygen, nitrogen atmospheres.
Yeah.
So it's really rare to find a world that you can just lay out in the open on. So she wakes up there, so to speak, but she's actually not all together and with it. So the idea is to kind of show that she still has guilt about destroying Earth. She was cognizant that she destroyed Earth somehow before she died. So she's cognizant of that. But she wasn't on Earth. She was actually in orbit at the time when Earth was destroyed. But she's the reason that Earth was destroyed. So the idea that I'm kind of coming up with here is showing that she is I mean, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. I'm just giving you the background so that this can add more background to what you're saying.
So far, you haven't changed my opinion. I still think that her waking up from a nightmare, it can legitimately, think, and then she can start off with sorting out, okay, wait, what did I actually do?
Mhm.
Realizing what she did, and go on from there. I'm not saying that what you're saying is bad to start the story off after they've already gotten her, but
But
you've
this
talked.
feels like this is probably issue 2, is what you're saying. The beginning
Yeah,
of
I
issue
think
2.
this would be more like issue 2, and
I
then
see.
you would actually have indications like before the Titan War, like this was going on. You introduce the character Alex, and instead of like her seeing a doll, like seeing her as she's skateboarding, she's actually seeing a parent and a child,
Right.
and then something weird happens, and they're walking skeletons.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know
like,
what I mean?
there's you do all kinds of
Yeah,
very
like you do some really weird stuff, like, and then like she can wake up, and then instead of being on the spaceship, you can actually have her wake up on moment.
right. In the arms of that poor the poor senator who found her.
Yeah, and then the story could go from there, like, and like you could actually explore her being trained, um her finding her AI that you had talked about, her having one, you
Mhm.
know um in the fact that it's the old form of AI that most people are like didn't realize actually existed, and they're like Eternals.
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
not they don't have like an age stop on them.
Right. Because they're old. Yeah. So
Yeah.
actually, now that you mention that, I think you're right. I think that the best way to do this would be to continue with issue 1 as it is. So we go through, and at the end, they find her and the senator, and she's unconscious because she was unconscious to begin with. So she's
Right.
not awake. At the end of when we clear issue 1, she is not awake, and she hasn't woken up, and she didn't wake up. And part of the weirdness of this whole thing is that our senator, who is one of those Buddhists that we were talking about before,
Uh-huh.
just knew she was there. And that's part of the, well, that's creepy. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Well, you can always make it creepier and have Alex look like what Chang's daughter would have looked like at 14.
well, that's part of the other read on this is that Alex looks similar to Sarah in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. So part of this is that conflict. That's always been built in. That's part of the reason why we have Alex specifically being a 14-year-old girl and not a 14-year-old boy or a 20-year-old man, or,
Yeah.
that's why it specifically has to be a 14-year-old girl, is because Chang lost a daughter who would be 14 at this point.
Right. But
Um,
like I'm talking like she looks at Alex and basically like has a hard time not blurring an image of what she would think her daughter would look like.
Maybe. I mean, I thought that would be the case too, but I think Alex needs to look like Alex. Um,
Well, no, I think that there'd be slight differences, like kind of like facially structured could be
Maybe.
similar, but like eye color could be different, hair color could be different, freckles could be on her face, but like Chang still sees somehow.
Only so, Brent, I'm only ready to send the brochure out uh, if we decide that the brochure is a brochure and not a tech manual. Decide on which conceit. Um, I guess really I want to go back through the pages and just kind of graphically align them and stuff like that. But yeah, they'll be ready by Monday. So
Hmm.
I mean, I'm going to spend the weekend kind of dinking with just graphics and making sure all the graphics are consistent through the whole thing. Oh, you know what we don't have is a cover. But you know what we could use for a cover? Hang on real quick. I will, because it's just a thing that we are working on. How about I did, yeah. How about Hang on. This would be cool. He's asking a question about this specifically. How about this? I like this piece.
Okay.
That could be the cover of the brochure, I guess, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It looks good as a cover. I'm starting to feel a little bit of the conceit is not really holding water as well anymore. And so maybe it will just concede to whatever it is and then just say it's the Bellatrix Rising tech manual. Just go with it.
I mean, it's if you already have images done, I just want to point out that you can always use those images.
Yeah, that's what I mean. This is done. This could be a cover right now.
Yeah, like I honestly.
That's why I was like, maybe I just want to roll with this and go.
Yeah, like I mean, I understand what Brent's saying. Like Monday, you have this, and this, and this, but I will be honest. If you can save time, do it.
Yeah.
Like just do it.
Well, Brent's trying to keep me on task, and he wants this completed by today, and I don't blame him at all. The problem is, I just now realized that we don't have a cover, and so we'll need a cover, and that actually is a big, important thing that we'll need to come up with. Not only that, I mean, like looking at this page, there's no graphic design on it. So I will probably spend some quality time this weekend, like, during my D&D game. We usually play, I've got Discord up here, and stuff like that. And so, it's all good. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So we'll figure that out. Back to the story concept that I'm coming up with, I think really what we've come up with is that I agree. I think that's the beginning of issue 2. That you're coming up with, or episode 2, which is really issue 3, because the incident on Moment is 2 issues. It's 64 pages. So I think that's a good way to start sort of issue 2 or episode 2 is with her, or even issue 2 could even be issue 2, because she could wake up on the second issue. And then, so maybe it is issue 2. So it's not episode 2, it's issue 2. And then,
like I thought, like the way that you were explaining it, that it would be a completely different, 100% completely different book type deal. Like you would have everything go on in one. They would get to right about before they land on Moment.
Right.
And then the next issue, complete issue, would start with Alex waking up after having this nightmare.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's where I'm going. And then that way you can kind of, because one of the reasons I really like starting out in a contemporary setting and then waking up from that in the medical lab is it gives a feel of where Alex is feeling. Like she's really displaced.
Yeah.
Right. So you'd start reading about this, her skateboarding down the street here in an American city. And you're like, what's going on? I thought this was a sci-fi. And then by the time you settle into that story, things go weird.
Right.
And then she wakes up and we're in the sci-fi story. And you're now getting a good impression of what she's feeling, being confused, because she's woken up confused. I also, in order for this to work, I think I have swapped my doctor with my engineer. So my doctor now can be a Najor, so that the first thing she sees is an alien, which is even more disorienting.
Yep.
She wakes up and there's an alien there going blah, 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 because she doesn't have the translator in. So he's just rambling on in Tamarbeshi. And she's like,
Yeah.
So I think that would also fit better. So that's kind of where I'm going on this one. I think that's good advice on your part. put this scene at the beginning of the second issue,
Yeah.
and then roll the second issue out from there. So there's that, which is good
And
because
also,
Archie probably ought to go take pictures of Old Town Arvada, which probably shouldn't be today because it's going to snow out there. So
well,
it's gonna be better.
I mean, if you can get there before the snow hits, that would be great. But
Nah,
we're
nah.
not going to say push it. Um,
Here,
but it's
it's
kind
on
of
the
like
second issue, as Brent would be clear to say, and he would be correct. If it's in the second issue, we don't need it today. And
right,
in fact, going out and doing it today would be a ridiculous thing. It would be
right.
excessive.
Well, and also I was like thinking about how what you were talking about with Alex
See
and
you
stuff.
Monday, Brent. I hate that you have to deal with your cellular service. And
See,
complete
Brad,
by the end of Sunday, yes. Let's make that a goal.
yeah. The one thing that I can say honestly about Alex once she's discovered, because you guys, you said that your story has something similar to the what is it, the holodecks. You have something for recreational on the ships.
I mean, yeah, I mean, holograms are everywhere. So
Right? No, I meant like the holodecks, like where they
I
go.
mean, you could technically make a hallway a holodeck.
Yeah.
Holograms are everywhere. They're pervasive.
No, what I no, what I'm saying is like you could also have her get an addiction to a hobby for
Oh,
Alex.
yeah.
Trying to basically get her life back from the past, but then having her to actually have to be told, I'm sorry, you can't do this anymore, it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
Because,
And you could do that in your room.
yeah, like
In
you
my
could.
world, you could do that in your room. And actually, I think once you said that, I realized that she could have a place. So, first of all, we had talked a while back about her resurrecting her old AI as a cat.
Yeah.
A holographic cat.
Uh huh.
And I think that the moment you said that, I had this image in my head of her sitting on a bench in a park here in Arvada, and the cat is at her feet looking up at her, and she's talking to the cat, and the cat's talking back, and the whole discussion's happening in this park. And then somebody knocks on her room, and the park disappears, and she's sitting on the bed, but the cat's still there.
Yeah.
You know, but the room is now her quarters back in on the ship. And
Yeah.
so the moment you said that, I had that image, and I love the idea of her maybe getting addicted to that and staying way too long in that world. And of course, the problem with permanent holograms is there's no wind or the smell of it. It still
Right.
smells like a starship
Yeah.
because it's designed practically. Nobody needs to practically smell other people.
Right.
So,
Well, and also at the same time, I think what would be more interesting is uh, one of the hologram crew
yeah,
is the one that basically says you need to stop this.
right.
And
Right.
and I think the AI holograms that are crew members basically are like, we've seen humans do this. It doesn't end well. You know, like,
Think about the other side of this.
yeah,
If Navin, who is the holographic ensign, if he's the one who comes in and goes, look, this is unhealthy, this isn't real, she could then fire back and go, does that mean you're not real? Because you're a hologram.
right.
And there's an interesting, like, ooh, and it gets all conflicty and they get all arguey and, you know.
Well, and you could also, and like,
one of the things I like doing with Lightress Rising as a story, I love exploring that kernel right there.
yeah. And like, and also at the same time, like, I know you already said that at one point, like, some of the holograms don't like the fact that she has a permanent hologram. Like an ever
There's
living
conflict with that cat. That cat's going to be a conflict too.
Yeah, and I think that you're right in having that conflict with that, but also at the same time, like, I think her hologram explaining what happened back then to make that hologram come to life and be assigned essentially to Alex would convince them that goes, no, this is a true servant. This is not a life form.
Right.
In which case they would kind of back down a little,
Well,
but still monitor the situation.
right. I think also, I would also put it that Navin isn't one of those.
Right. I
Not
don't think
bothered by
that
it.
will be. No.
Or he might be like confused by it or perplexed, but I feel like that could also be sort of an analogy of how we deal with, say, homosexuals and stuff like that. Whereas you have one individual doesn't care, but the culture cares.
Yeah.
The culture is applying pressure.
Right.
And so that becomes a different sort of concept.
But that can happen much later in the story. That doesn't have to happen.
Well, so we've got to, I have a whole bunch of Tamerlan scripts, which are, here is the moral dilemma of what Cochrane, who's now Chang, has to think through. This is the moral dilemma that I found interesting. I'm writing the script around that moral dilemma. It's going to have to be peppered, pun intended, because it's always a pun, and I always intend my puns. It's going to have to be planted with stories of what's going on in the crew. There's going to have to be something. So none of this is going to be wasted. All of this is going to be plugged in to the existing stories that are already out there. It's just that in this story, I'm going to further my arguments with AIs a little bit in this story. And then I'll plant another one 2 stories down. And then I'll plant another one 3 stories down so that there's a consistent sort of work on this long story. And there'll be other things. We've got to deal with the Deus Thadi and their storytelling aspects. Somewhere along the line, Mayrell's father will die, because every character has some aspect of thing that I'm working through my own life in. Chang lost her mother a long time ago because Cochrane lost her mother a long time ago.
Right.
And I lost my mother a long time ago, and it was part of the way I was working through that. I just lost my dad. So
we got another one.
that one's not, I can't use you as a bad guy.
Might be,
Yeah, it's just like I can't even use that.
Psyche Midnight.
Yeah.
I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's definitely a bot.
So none of this will be wasted. All of this is useful, and I think it's really cool. And I like the way that you think through these things too, because you're adding other problems. And sometimes they're just going to be one little scene in a transport tube. It's going to be, you're going to have Alex going up the tube and Navin coming down the tube, and they stop and talk to each other in the tube. And he's like, so was talking to, AI Central about your cat, and they're still very worried about it, or something. And we continue the thought process.
Having that ensign bonding with Alex would be kind of interesting in the sense of like Data and Tasha Yar sort of deal. I also want to like throw this out there that at one point Alex can legitimately ask him, or I forget the gender. Basically asks Navin, why haven't your people made biomechanical androids so that they don't have to burn discs?
So that's a story.
Yeah, is there something?
There's an episode of Bellatrix Rising called Sins of the Father, and that's the plot behind it. Sort of is androids.
Yeah, and well, the thing is like her asking that, like Navin could say like that goes against like some type of treaty that they made when the war ended between them and organics.
Sort of.
Yeah. And
the truth is that there hasn't been a problem. I mean, really, honestly, Navin has a body if Navin operates correctly. Navin's job is to be the Kittywake's primary computer, not you. Um, so he has a body. It's just that it's a starship.
Right. What I'm saying, like, and kind of like not data, but like what it's a biomechanical android essentially. Um, they would actually have some flesh to them.
Mhm. Right. I'm just
And
saying that the thing is that the reason they did it isn't because of a lack of laws
yeah,
or a law that's put in place or anything like that. That's not why they did it. They
right,
did it because AIs can occupy anything. They can
right,
occupy the Kitty They can occupy one of the pressure suits that the Jacine use to wander around the hallways, which make the Jacine into these really tall, spindly, like robots.
yeah,
It's just a pressure suit that they get into so that they can wander the hallways of the ship.
mhm,
Well, they can get into one of those and walk around and manipulate the environment.
right.
They don't have a problem. They don't have a design or desire because they can occupy anything. They can occupy a car. They can occupy, it doesn't matter. So because of that, their body is whatever they want to get into today. And they use the
Well,
holograms on board the ships to give something personal to interact with for all the creatures that are on board. Because otherwise, really, they could just be a glowing ball wandering down the hallways.
you could also sit there and basically she can say that and go, yeah, because I know humans in the past were actually kind of really worried about it. There was like a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of movies about it, and like you can spoof a Terminator like movie,
Sure.
like where they had an android body, but then they covered it with like actual like synthesized flesh
Right.
and stuff, and Navin could actually be like horrified.
Right.
This is what she was talking like that. This is what old Earth actually thought would happen with AI life. Like you know what I mean. Like he could be horrified, and then she goes, "Yeah, so this is what I was expecting." you know,
I
like
think I might call them SILs, SILs.
yeah,
I was walking with my buddy Alex yesterday, who reads Daniel Keys Marone. It's one of his favorite authors. And in one of Daniel Keys Marone's books, yes, and by the way, yes, your concept, yes, I think that that's part of it. They'd be horrified. Um, Daniel Keys Marone had an AI war and a similar situation as mine, da 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 da. But the AIs didn't like to be called AIs because artificials loaded. The word artificial is loaded, right?
right,
Just as real as you are. Don't call me artificial, sort of thing.
right,
So I was thinking of making them silicon intelligent life forms, SILs.
okay. And would they be separate from the holograms that the AI life forms are?
No, I'm just saying that instead of calling them AIs, we're going to call them SILs.
Oh, okay.
That's all. Because I agreed yesterday, I'd thought about that and said, that's probably true. They'll probably get a little upset about being called artificial. They probably wouldn't
Well,
find it.
and since Alex is relatively new to the time, she may not know.
Right. Right.
So like,
She may
it's
not
one of
know, and
those,
she'd be like, "Oh, so you're an AI?" Yeah, but we don't use the word artificial.
or Navin can say, "What do you mean by AI?"
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
she explains, and he goes, "That's horrifying."
well, and I mean, it's kind of like because my buddy Alex had said, which is a little confusing, but I intentionally wanted to pick a name that was gender neutral. So Alex came up. It was either Alex or Sam. Sam's not bad. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
My
no, trust me, I understand. I actually have a character named Ori.
Yeah,
Ori could be a boy or a girl. I
right.
understand.
But so he was saying, although it is true because artificial just means man-made, and I said, well, yeah, but that's kind of like saying homosexuals are dysfunctional because they cannot reproduce. It's
Right.
true, but seriously loaded, right? Like that is a loaded statement and really doesn't come out right. You know what I mean? Like it can be true, but still loaded. And so I think that they're going to go by silicon intelligent life forms. I'm going to write this down. And what's going to be funny is they'll be called sills, and you know that in Tamarbeshi, it's going to be, QRM is, it's gonna be like Quirksar Bibigapu Bibidapaboo or whatever. And they're gonna be like, that stands for sill. And everybody's gonna be like, huh? You know? And it's gonna make total sense to Alex because she speaks English. But since the AI wars happened long enough ago that they actually were still speaking English in some areas, the name can derive directly from English, an English acronym, which I think would be even cooler. It's kind of like when you think about Russia, like the old Soviet Union. We used to say USSR, but when you look at it in Cyrillic, it was CCCP, right?
Right.
And so I love that concept that you call it USSR, but USSR, but their uniforms all say CCCP, and you're like, that doesn't even make sense, right? And so I like that concept that there are things and aspects where they've pulled a name and the name was branded on them in a different language. And we just still call them that name, even though it doesn't say the same thing anymore.
Well, yes. I mean,
The concept's still there.
yeah, the concepts, and not trying to be mean against anyone from Russia, but like, let's be honest, there are still people in the United States that refer to it as USSR.
Yeah.
I have met some, and no, but also at the same time, like I know, like my mom, like my great grandparents, if they were still alive on my mom's side, and they visited their hometown in Poland, they wouldn't be able to understand anyone at this point because they actively changed their language.
Yeah.
And updated it to more modernistic terms.
Yeah. I have a Polish buddy who lives in Canada, and she left Poland at like 9 or something like that. And we often have really interesting discussions about that era of her life. But more importantly, it's interesting because I have a Russian buddy who left Ukraine when she was in her 20s and came over here. And the two of them have become fast friends, which is amazing to me since I remember a time when my Polish buddy she would go on rants about Russian people. So, and understandably true, because part of the reason she had to leave Poland was because of Russia and the Eastern Bloc crap that was all going on over there. And so
a lot of Poland's history is wrapped up in people trying to control Poland. And one of the people that tried to control Poland for a very long time was Russia.
It was Russia.
Just Austria and Germany both also.
Germany, I was going to say, the Nazis wanted Poland too. Yeah. Everybody wants Poland.
Yeah, Poland. And that's why Polish heritage. A lot of people have lost a lot of hereditary stories and
culture.
And culture have been pervasively removed from the history, because people like moved in and then they basically implemented their own history of what they wanted to have implemented, and that's why a lot of people get like upset with some of the Polish moves of like banning talking, like basically a law that bans anyone from saying that Poland had a very large hand in the Holocaust, stuff like that, and it's like, no, that's actually the quite opposite. Polish people were put in concentration camps as well for trying to help their Jewish friends.
Right.
A great deal. There was actually a Polish underground. There was a lot of things that were done, but a lot of people did leave Poland. unfortunately, because they couldn't, like, they weren't willing to sacrifice their families. They weren't willing to sacrifice a lot of
We're
things, and
going
they
into the
had to
weeds,
make a hard choice,
right?
like leave Poland or die trying to protect people that they love.
Right,
And a lot of them chose to leave.
right, right. So I'm
So
not trying to.
sorry, that's a rant. That's a rant.
Right. I was about to say you and I both have a horrible habit of going into the weeds. So
Yes, I know. We need a
um,
moderator. Where's Colton?
right.
Well,
So,
again, that's not really a great moderator. Where's Raph? I
right. We need Raph. He just make fun of us.
know.
Um,
Be like,
so
stop trying to marginalize white people.
right. Raph would be all about that. He'd be like, wait. I mean, we'd be like, what? You talking about? Talking about Willis. So goals for this weekend, I want to go on ahead. I feel like we really are right on the edge of finishing up this, whether we call it a brochure or a tech manual or whatever. I feel like we're right on the edge of doing it and finishing it. So I'm going to try to finish that by Sunday so I can have it ready to go Monday. At the moment, I don't have enough money to order them. We're sort of in a tight, very tight spot right now. So it's all right. We'll get to it. It will be correct at some point here, and all will be good, and it won't be a problem. What my wife and I were talking about was we need a drop dead. You know, when is the drop dead moment when we have to order these things from the printer and still make it work? What moment is that? When is that? And then we'll decide that point, which is good because that means that we can go over then this tech manual and let it sit, because I think that we need 14 days. So in order for it to be ready for April 2nd, that means the middle of March as the drop dead, which gives us some time to let it sit for a little bit, not work on it for a while, and
Yeah.
then go back to it and go, oh my God, I didn't even notice I put this on this page and I shouldn't have done that. Or maybe it'll just roll out and be fine. Who knows?
Well, you can just make sure that you have it and you can send it for people to proof.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it's done proofing, then you take a look, go over the edits, and you do that, and then you send to print.
That's what I'm thinking. So I'm hoping that, well, I'm not hoping. I'm going to spend the weekend on this. I've got nothing else to do this weekend except shoot pictures on Sunday for NDK. But other than that, that's just go off to do it, shoot the pictures, and then upload them. So that's not a big deal. So what I'm going to do...
Is this upcoming weekend?
Mm-mm. No, but as a director, I am constantly doing crap for NDK all year long. And we have charity items that we are going to put in the charity for NDK, and they all need to be photographed so that we can put them on social media and going, hey, in September, don't forget, this is what we do, and here's some pictures of some of the things we'll have in charity.
Yeah.
I got to go photograph all that, and that's just a thing I do because I'm in charge of charity. I'm one of the sections that I'm in charge of. So
yeah,
snow is rolling in. It says, I see the little icon down there. It says snow. And now the sun has disappeared and the clouds are starting to roll. And
no, you're not allowed. No, I deny. I do not want this.
I don't blame you. I'm not going to say you're wrong. So anyway, that's something that I'm going to, this weekend we'll be doing that, and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then I will have that done, and that won't be a problem. So I think that's good. That's where I am for this next week. Obviously, what Brent was saying is accurate and correct. He wants me to work on illustration 2 and 3 for Silver Pentacle 2. And he wants me to do it. All he's really doing is organizing what I have to do. And I really want to say I appreciate that a lot because he's not wrong. I'm flighty and weird and all over the place. So it's, it's definitely legit for him to say, you know, um, him to keep me on roll here. He wants me to do a Springs comic on Monday. I don't blame him on that one too. I need to come up with a joke though, so I'll need to think up a joke. I have a problem doing Springs when I don't have a joke now because we do Geek Tank halfway through. So on Monday now we do one hour of show instead of two, and that's a lot of, I don't want to say pressure, but I don't have the time to go, okay, well, let's think up a good joke, shall we? I don't have that luxury because that takes about 30 minutes. And so then it takes an hour to draw the comic. So I need a joke rolling in. And so I'm going to think up a joke this weekend for Springs so that I have one on Monday morning because I just need to spend some time thinking about something. That's all. I just need to be prepped. So that's where I am over the weekend or over the next week. Where are your plans for the next week?
Live. No. Besides that, I am trying to figure out what's going to be planned. I need to get back to drawing some stuff. We are supposed to be getting the items so that we can have continuous streaming available from my camera that that me and Bill got. I mean, the sound equipment and everything is working fine. We just need to get that additional stuff set up essentially, so that I can start streaming while I'm working on non-NDA related items, so I can actually get some headway on a lot of projects. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that there's a lot of stuff that I need to get back to working on.
I just realized I have an iPad sitting right there. I mean, I have always had this iPad sitting here. I use it for whenever I need an iPad, and it's always on. It's always plugged in, and it's always charging. I wonder if I moved this iPad over to right here, I could probably log in to the show and watch the streaming side over here and respond because it'd be right there on top of the rig. Not a bad idea. I'm certain.
Well, it's not. I mean, and I've done the show from my iPad. Downside is it forces you to use Safari on the iPad, and if you try to use Chrome won't work on the iPad.
Yeah. Yep,
so, as far as texting goes, like responding and everything and seeing it so that it's bigger, I mean, I guess that's on your end, not mine. Like on how to do that.
Right? Because I'm looking at this and going, I'm actually thinking I might do a different thing here because I have put this guy, which holds a lot of stuff. This guy, I may actually move him over. I know now all of a sudden you're like, what the hell are you doing? I have this camera holder thing, which has a light on it. And I need a light over there. And really, honestly, I'm not using it for holding the camera. I was using it to hold the camera, and then I didn't. And then this morning I broke it trying, well, I didn't break it, but I broke it trying to get it. I snapped off the little head on it. But the head is just a screw-on thing, so I can just put it back on. which is what I'm going to do. But we had this guy before. There we go. On here. I used him over on the other side. And I'm wondering if I put this guy over here, there would be a light, which I need on this zone over here. There would be a light, and there'd be a way to hold my camera. Also something I need over here. So that's a thing. And if I bring this over, I can do that. All I'm saying is I think I may have found a better rig for over the desk over here than Olivia, which I've been using, which will allow me to do painting over here better. Just not 100% sure, because you can still hear me just fine because the microphone works really well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what you're talking about with lighting, it's something that I've been trying to figure out on how to get better lighting.
Yep.
Over my desk as well, because I had it all on one side and then I had the shadow on the other side because the light would kind of fade.
Right.
Now I have it coming from two sides, so it doesn't seem bad. But when I turn on the light, I get like shadows everywhere, which direction now in my office and studio. It's very jarring because like the lamps over there, they make some of the shadows like blue,
right,
in my office, and the light that's actually on right now makes everything like warmer shadow.
Right.
And so like I have a ton of different light aspects going on, and so now like, and Bill's been talking about possibly giving me more light in the room, and honestly, I'm kind of not really wanting that those lights coming in, because honestly speaking, as much as I would like more light, I think it would complicate more things and it would cause more shadowing to occur.
I can see that.
So, and shadows are kind of like the enemy of artists when they're working.
Yep. That's kind of what I'm doing over here. Is I'm looking at this going, okay, how can I do this without crunching a spaceship?
Right.
Bad. Crunching a spaceship seems like a bad thing. That'll make me mad and unhappy in a lot of ways. So crunching spaceships equals bad. Gotcha. But yeah, I liked us doing Watercolor Wednesday. That was really cool. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna
do Watercolor Wednesday. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think what I'll do though is I think I'm gonna zoom in better on my desk so that people can actually see what I'm doing, like, better.
Sure.
Not saying that it wasn't bad. It was just I realized while rewatching some of it with the audio off, because I didn't want to listen to us talking, because I was just like,
again,
I don't need to hear.
You were already in that conversation once.
Yeah. I noticed that it still is very difficult, and I think the reason why Bill wants me to have more lighting on top is to have lighting as I rise the image to the camera.
Right.
But it kind of is like I could do whatever I did last time, and just come over to my computer and actually just have it right here, and then I could just switch back if I needed to, you know.
Right.
Because I'm noticing like the camera that we're using does not adjust quickly. Does not adjust quickly at all.
Right, I agree. Okay. I am fighting with this camera and kind of doing some work over here and kind of seeing where things are going with this.
Okay.
And I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed.
Okay.
I think what we've got going on over here is now I've got it kind of on this arm, which allows me to move it more. I can get it
Yeah.
in a nice spot now, but it's on an actual mount instead of being on like a kludged mount that wasn't necessarily.
You're also on it at an angle too, just to let
Well,
you.
yeah, I mean it's not set yet.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to kind of, and you can see it's still got a lot of wobble and stuff like that. So we've got kind of some work to do over here. But looking at this setup, I think this will solve a lot of problems because once I find power for this, this will be this ring light that I've had. That I've had the ring light over here, over on this side, aimed at me, and frankly, it just doesn't generate enough light to offset the sunlight coming in the window. So I've been kind of going, well, it's kind of useless. Well, I don't really use it. So I think what I'm going to do is this will be the more permanent setup, and I will just rig this to work, and I will put this here. And I think this will be the thing I'm looking for.
Okay.
And it will allow me to keep it out of the way of right here is all of my Starship stuff, right? My Starship drawers, where I keep all my Starships and stuff. So right now the rig is in front of it, but I think I could probably set it up so that it's not sitting in front of it anymore.
Okay.
Which would be cool. And yeah, I'm going to have to definitely align it properly because it's not aligned at all. But it's actually on a camera mount now, which it wasn't on before. And that's going to be useful. So I think that's going to be a thing. I'm going to be messing with that a little later on today. So I guess I will do that as time goes on because I've got to get. I've actually been thinking about doing this for a while. I have a 4-port USB power block, and all it does is power things. That's its job. That's what it does. It just powers stuff. And I feel like that. I mean, it's not. There's no data line through it, but it's a big, heavy, white block with a weight in it so that it doesn't move with 4 ports on top.
Okay.
It right now is sitting right here under this monitor to charge batteries for like my lights. Well, I could unplug it, pull it out, and plug it into the other outlet over here and bring it up over on that side. And then I'd have 4 ports of power over there on USB. But the thing is, we're getting away from using the Olivia as my lighting source for when I'm painting.
Okay.
Because I don't want to do that. That definitely is an issue. So we have about 10 minutes. So while we're at this last 10 minutes, I think I'm going to at least crawl under here and see if I can figure out where the power stuff is so that I can plug stuff and plug stuff in.
Okay.
Like the power cords for this, white cords. Where is that? For you. You are, no, that's not you. Where are you? You are here. Here is you. And all the power things have fallen over around here. Isn't that nice? Somebody's been under here. I won't name any names. It starts with a G and ends with an E.
It's Guy? Oh.
It's GE. We bring good things to life. Okay, so I've unplugged power strip on this side. It may actually end up back where it was, but that's all right. Bring the power cord up through here. Let it come up through. So my desks are actually a bunch of doors. They were old doors that were not being used and in my garage. And so it's got the coolest, because it's got doorknob holes. It has these great ports that go down under the desk. so that I can do, I can just put wires under, through the table, so to speak. So that's kind of cool. Always found that to be neat. Okay, go through here. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. I have this 4-port USB hub, and all you do is just plug it in, and it gives 4 ports of power.
Okay.
So I'm going to put it over here. And George is now like, what the heck is going on? I hear things.
Cords.
Moved. I'm going to take the microphone and put it back over here so that we don't end up with a whole bunch of while I'm doing this.
How'd that go?
Technical term. Okay. George, you're a pest, but it's all good. You are who you are. You perpetually will be. And ironically, I think I can plug it right back in where it was. Because it reaches all the way over here. Boogie, boogie, boogie. He's like, what? What's going on? Here we go. Power back restored to that unit. Put you up here. I think is what I do. Oh man, come on, get in there.
What's George doing to you?
I know, right? Yeah, I know. You think this is cool. There we go. And then I can come up here again. Put that right there temporarily. And then I can plug this in right here. And we can see what kind of light we get. Oh, yeah, that works really well, actually. Look over here. This light actually does a really good job of being a light over here. I could probably put it like so and kind of wrestle with it a little so that it's more like this and less. Yeah, maybe I guess I'll have to fuss with it a little, but you can see we get light on the table over here. It works just fine.
My only concern is if you try to paint too close to under the light.
It's hot.
Yeah. Because, I've even noticed, even with my own lighting, I tend to have to diffuse it after a while. And I still have to diffuse the one that I have so it doesn't go directly on. So it spreads it slightly so that it doesn't come in as harsh. Because I don't have a matte. I have like a semi-gloss tabletop.
Right.
On mine.
I went and bought this mat for this job. That's what this mat's job is. Yeah. So, but also, this guy is sitting like this, but I can twist these guys. They're all on a specific kind of. They're on like the whatever that mount kind of thing is. So we can move this. Oh man, but is this hard to move? Hard to wrangle. We can switch them around a little bit and do that so that, yeah, I know it's not lined up yet. It's all right. We'll get it. We'll get it lined up.
It's all good. I wasn't saying to do it right now. I was just saying.
Well, what else are we doing? So, but yeah, I agree. There's hot spots on here.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I can get. We'll have to figure out where I can wrestle this guy down. He's hard to maneuver. go. So it's more like he's closer now, much closer to the board. And this guy can go like here and be like that. And that still isn't quite blocking. I mean, it's got a lot more. This needs to come up more. Maybe. So I can do this. And then, yeah. Actually, this will work really well. I'm actually kind of stunned. I didn't think of this before. But now the camera is actually on a real, honest to goodness camera mount instead of being taped to the top of a light. It's on a real camera mount, and that light actually is lighting up the table pretty good. So that's not bad on that point either.
What I would test out before streaming, like at some point this weekend for yourself, because I'm going to be doing it myself too, is placing a piece of paper down on the desk and see if I'm going to have an issue with the lighting.
With heat.
With heat lighting, essentially. I mean, I use LEDs, but the direct light is basically what it is, and then experiment with what type of thing I can use to diffuse. Because I was diffusing the light with laundry sheets, like air freshener, like the laundry, like like what you put in dryers.
Yeah.
Or
dryer sheets.
Yeah, dryer sheets. But I could actually have gotten a mix where I don't need to worry about that because it's far enough away now because they are both lamps are actually coming in from a different angle. They're not directly over the desk anymore, which was in the apartment. They were over the desk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had 2 heat spots. So now I just need to see if I still have those 2 heat spots on the desk. And you can do the same thing for the new desk if that's the case. Like that's something you want to try to do that.
No, I just think that this rig will work pretty well. I'll need to do some adjustments. Obviously, we'll need to dink with it a little, but I'm actually pretty pleased with this rig. So actually, yeah, I agree. Whether we'll have to figure out whether it has hot spots that are just too hard to see.
Yeah.
Where's my sketchbook? I mean, obviously, we can just put the sketchbook up there and see whether the sketchbook reads.
Yeah.
I've hidden my sketchbook from me. Oh, you know why? It's because we went to drawing club Tuesday night.
Ah, okay.
Drawing club. We take our sketchbook with us. But here we go. We'll go over here and we'll take a look and see what it looks like. See how well we can see artwork. Like her. That's not bad. I mean, we got to turn off our Olympics fan stuff. Hang on. There we go. But that's not bad. I mean, we can see pretty well, and the lighting isn't too hot.
Yeah. I mean, you can see from the background.
Yeah.
Like, I have to kind of do this when I have those lights on.
Well, yeah. I mean, like,
yeah.
The overlight that's on my desk is hot. It's hot on the board over here too. So at some point in time, I'm going to have to, when we get to the point where I can put another camera back on this lamp, which is where it's supposed to be, to look over my engineering table, that'll be somewhere along the line. We'll have that rigged. I need a longer USB cable to get to that. It doesn't have enough data transfer capability on the one that I've got to pull that off. So that's all right. But we'll have to adjust all the lights. But really, I'm just looking at, for right now, this guy and whether he's too hot. And I don't think he's too hot. I think you can see the artwork just fine. It's not too hot.
I mean,
That'd be nice.
I think for this is just for me. This is my perspective. You have it where the head, the face of the character would be in major focus of the image, so it does look good with this lighting. If it was a different image, in my opinion, it would be a little bit different. I don't think it would be the same feel for me with that image. Um, yeah. Again, you are more of a top of the page person.
I'm
So,
definitely a page person.
yeah, I mean, that's why it probably worked for you. If you had something that was more at the bottom of the page, I think it would be highlighted better. Yeah.
Oh, well, that might be just adjustment of the camera, which the
Yeah.
camera is not in its permanent place yet.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, because like I just wanted to see whether we had the problem with what you were saying, which was washing out because of the light.
I
But
mean, it doesn't seem like it's washing it out.
I don't think it's washing it out either.
I mean, with the previous pictures, this one you can barely see like the lines, but I don't know if you had traditional lines with that one.
No, not really. I mean,
Yeah.
it's more of a not at the top of the page sort of one.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it's you're having it pivoted where the eye line is going towards the light, so it still looks good.
Well, we're not going to be able to deal with. I mean, like this isn't the final. This isn't its final destination. This
Yeah.
is my final transformation. Right now, it's set up whereby it is doing this sort of. Really, what I'm looking at here, the camera is not ready to go yet. The camera is not in its final location. So, so that's we'll go for that looks good so far. And I think really what I'm looking at is the light too bright? And I don't think so. I think this light's gonna be fine. So
Gotcha.
I feel like this light will be okay.
Okay.
So, okie dokie pokey. Well, then we have learned a cool thing and we have done some stuff. And I think the biggest thing that's important is I was going to get a light for over there. But right now we're on restriction for money. So I can't get a light for over there, even a $25 light for over there. So we're kind of holding out right now because I don't have any commissions or any photography going on right now. So I'm not bringing in a lot of money. So we're on hold. So I was kind of like, I want to light up that area. And so I was using Olivia for it, but I really want Olivia to be open so that we can go do other stuff.
Yeah.
You and I can go shoot somewhere else. So putting Olivia away and working over here is great. Using this light, which has been kind of useless right here to light me up, has always been. I mean, you can't even really see when I change this camera's ring light, it still doesn't work very. I mean, it just doesn't do much. The only reason I turn the ring light on is to remind me to look at it instead of talking to you all the time like this.
Well, I mean, the thing is when when I'm on my computer talking to you, I actually have to put, because my family is super weird, in the sense of we tend to talk to our reflections if there's a mirror around. So I literally have to put the screen where the built-in computer camera is on, because if I put it over here, I'm talking like this to you.
Right.
But I know I'm not. I know I have to talk this way.
Right.
And having the screen on the other monitor would not be as good. So.
Totally true.
Hello, George.
George decided to visit at literally the last minute. Literally the last minute.
It's all right.
I know. Sometimes I'm George, but this time I'm clearly just having George for just a minute. He's a good cat when he's not being a pest, which is, most of the time.
Eh.
Anyway, okay. I feel like we've done good today. I'm going to keep working on this setup over here, and then I'll have it rigged up, and it should be good to go when we start again on Watercolor Wednesday next week. You've done that before. Don't do that. We've had this discussion, you little pest. So, anyway, good. Thank you for joining me there, my dear and awesome friend Pepper. I appreciate it always. And I will see all of you guys. Thank you for joining me. I had Ghost Hand, Donald, Brent, and Scream. And we had Donna, whatever her name, Donna Sanders, who's now going to be a bad guy in my story, which is what I do with all of the readable names that come up as obvious bots. So anyway,
I would like to point out that the moment that I saw Donna Sanders, I just pictured someone from that 70s show.
because Donna,
Yeah.
my mom's name was Donna. So I have sort of a thing about Donna, obviously, because we'd be like, am I putting mom in there? That's weird. So we'll have to see how that rolls out. I may disagree as time goes on. So we'll see. Anyway, I will see you guys all later, and I will see you Monday. Or you don't have to join me Monday if you don't want to, because it's a Springs Day.
Yeah, apparently, Brent already said that you have a lot of stuff going on Monday. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, well, I got to do Springs on Monday, and then we've got next week is going to be all Airship 27, which is keeping me on task because I should be doing Elio 2 and 3 for Airship 27. As a side note, at the Saturday meeting, Ron told me that I am definitely doing the cover for that too. And he intends for me to illustrate Silver Pinnacle 3 and do the cover for that one. So I will have all three of the trifecta. They will all be my covers and my interior art and stuff like that. So cool. Anyway, that's just a cool thing because I'm just excited about that. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Pepper, go get lunch. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Computer, good night.